Okay, I'm going to make a video in response to a comment on one of my videos. That video maybe 6 months or a year ago. It was originally intended for Hoover. The name of his YouTube channel is Pilot Debrief. I didn't really expect a response from him, but these are such interesting parts of history that he may just make a video, a little bit out of his normal subject matter. And because what Hoover normally does, what Hoover normally does, he will, make comments on NTSB and FAA reports, of fatal and non-fatal aircraft crash. His idea is to make other pilots aware of the mistakes, either mechanical problems, mistakes pilots make, that type of thing. That's what Hoover's normally trying to do. And I like watching his videos, but I don't comment on him very much, but. Yeah, and Guy, I do need some chick, 40s to 60s somewhere, to join me on my videos, either just hike mountains or go in the desert, or maybe she's a New Ager, and we can discuss New Age stuff. I'd be open to that. Anyway, platonic or otherwise. But anyway, the first story that I covered on my first video, because I find these interesting, was Amelia Earhart. Now, she was Amelia. My personal thought is she just ran out of fuel, and either she ditched in the ocean or she's able to land on an island. Now, the story's out there. You can find this. But the FCC had assigned her a specific frequency only she could use, or people contacting her could use. Nobody else could use that frequency. It was 6-point-something megahertz. You can find it. But as this story goes, a ham radio operator in San Francisco had picked up her voice using her call sign on that frequency. I don't know if he tried to contact her back or not, because he probably could use that frequency. But if you're trying to contact her, but well, the idea was that with this theory that she was taken prisoner by the Japanese, well, that she was actually spying for Roosevelt. I don't think that's the case. But anyways, if she was taken prisoner by the Japanese, because they were occupying some of those islands in that area, her and her navigator actually died in their custody. I'm not saying they killed her, but maybe something happened there. But anyway, and the people responsible didn't want to admit to doing it, and they buried her and her navigator, and they destroyed the plane. And that would be kind of lost to history. But that's one theory. And the next one I'm going to cover is Wrong Way Corrigan. Now, Corrigan, this is back, right after Lindbergh. What was that, in the early 30s somewhere? I don't remember the exact. You can look it up. You can type search here on YouTube, Wrong Way Corrigan. You can get the story. But he'd float his plane to New York. He's going to take off, and the predecessor of the FAA was like the CAA or CAA, Civilian Aircraft Administration, something like that. But anyway, they told him they decertified him. They decertified his plane. They said, "Hey, look, you can't possibly make it. You don't have the pilot skills. Your plane isn't going to make it." So Corrigan reasoned with me. Said, "Hey, look, I'm going to make one more flight. I'm going to go to California. I'm going to bone up on my piloting skills. I'm going to get the mechanics to work on my plane, and then maybe I can make it." And they said, "Okay, yeah, you can go back to California." Anyway, he takes off, and half a day or two later, he ends up in Ireland. Corrigan's an Irish name, so he went to Ireland, and and they asked him. They said, "Hey, we thought you was going to California. Why'd you end up in Ireland?" And Corrigan goes, "Well, I must have went the wrong way." Now, Corrigan, you don't do that. You don't make a flight like that unless you know exactly what you're doing. He's no dummy. But anyway, that stuck with him. Wrong Way Corrigan. But he's kind of lost to history now. But you can find that story. Now, the next one I want to cover are the ghosts of Pan Am, Eastern America. It's one of the flights. It was Flight 401 that it had crashed and down in the Everglades. Well, what had happened, the bulb for the landing gear, the landing gear had burned out, and the pilot was trying to assess the problem, and he was in a holding pattern with autopilot, but somehow the autopilot disengaged, and he ended up crashing the Everglades. Some of the flight crew was killed. I don't know if they're the passengers, but I think most of them survived and they were rescued. But anyway, at that time, they reused some of the equipment, maybe some of the radios, navigation equipment, maybe, I think the oven out of the galley, but some of the flight attendants that had flown with the captain and navigator and the flight engineer, had known them, and they had reported seeing the ghosts of that flight. I guess it scared them pretty good. But if you're one thing you don't do, if you're in a sensitive job like that, you don't report seeing ghosts because you can lose your job. They think it's mentally unstable or something. But anyway, these flight attendants had reported it. They tried to play it down, but I think they eventually removed the equipment and the ghost disappeared. But you can find that story's here on YouTube. Type that Ghost of Flight 401. You can find it. And the last one I want to talk about is Dan Cooper, DB Cooper. Now a guy using that name had hijacked a flight. He got $200,000, something like that. But he disappeared to history. Nobody really knows who he is. But there's this guy McCoy. I think a lot of people think that this guy McCoy was Dan Cooper because maybe about a year later, something like that, he had. This guy McCoy had hijacked another plane, but he ended up getting caught. They figured out who he was. I think he parachuted out, but you can get that story. That story's out there. McCoy story's out there. But he got arrested. He was sentenced to a lengthy federal prison time. But him and some other people had escaped, and the FBI had actually asked McCoy if he was because he looks like the picture that the flight attendant had drawn. That story's out there. But anyway, I personally think that this McCoy guy is Dan Cooper. But FBI had asked him, he wouldn't answer him. But like I said, he got killed in a gun battle with the FBI back in the mid '70s somewhere. But I got one more. It's a spin deck message. Now this was transmitted by shortwave. It was is a flight. Either a soccer team going between, it's back in the 1950s. This was done in Morse code. It's flight between Argentina and Chile. It crossed over the Andes, but that asked the radio operator, for one of the, I can't think which, they asked him, his estimated time of arrival, something like that. He typed spin deck. And nobody could ever figure out what this message meant. He transmitted it twice, spin deck. And to this day, nobody knows exactly what it means. The aircraft ended up crashing on top of the Andes, and eventually, back in the 90s, they actually found pieces of it, like the engines and stuff had actually shown up. It crashed into a heavy snowpack and eventually made its way down the mountain. But to this day, nobody knows what that spin deck message means. And like I said, if Hoover of the Flight Debrief channel wants to comment on these, it would certainly be interesting. They're not quite his normal cup of tea, but they're certainly very, very interesting pieces of history that, some of the stories people heard, some of the stories people haven't, but I find them all interesting. Okay, bye-bye. Love you all.